Great. All right. So, hello everyone. I hope you're doing super well. Welcome back to another session of the Gaming Academy. Today we have one of my great friends, Rafif Kalantan. So, Rafif is really, really cool. She is an award-winning game designer and narrative designer. She will tell you a lot about herself, and if I start talking, I won't stop. But generally, she's worked as like on a bunch of award-winning games. She's made a bunch of award-winning games as well. Studied in the UK, came back to Saudi, and is basically just making some really, really cool things happen here in Saudi. So this is just like the general overview that I'm gonna give. Rafif, if you'd like to talk about, just basically flex on everyone. Tell us about your awards, tell us about the things you're doing, tell us about
Okay.
everything that you've been up to, basically.
Okay, I'll try. I don't know if I'm very good at flexing, but hi, hello, my name is Rafif Kalantan. I'm a game developer. Mainly, I do design, narrative, and production. So I did a bachelor first in computer science. After that, I did a master's in game design and development in the UK at the National Film and Television School. It was also under a scholarship from NEOM. It was really fancy. They only sent 5 people. So yeah, it felt really good to go on that. I worked with a couple of studios. So I worked with Starvania Studios, who've released their game in May, very early May, I think 7 or 8 of May. I've worked on that narrative for around 2 years. It was a bit modified after I left, but a lot of it is my baby, basically. I've worked with Lucky Seven on their upcoming game. You can follow them as well on social media. I think their game is due to be released sometime soon. I'm not sure if they announced their release date yet or not. Um, yeah, and I worked on my final year project. It was called Eric Xavier's Love Solutions. Um, that game won a student BAFTA. It was the first non-European game to win a student BAFTA, so that was really cool. And then I produced a project the following year called There Was a Home. The director was also Saudi. That won the second student BAFTA award for games outside of Europe. So that was again really cool. So 2 years in a row, same school, same country, same university. We even graduated from the same undergrad university, so it felt really nice. Um, yeah, and after that, I won a few more awards. I was part of MCV developed 30 Under 30 in the UK for the year 2023. Ashraf and I actually worked on a game together called Zaytoon. We submitted it to just play game jam, a game jam for justice, and it won best integration of theme. It was about Palestine. What else? I also was part of London Games Festival Ensemble last year, so 2024. Yeah, I'm taking a break from awards this year apparently. So yeah, my most recent thing is I was program manager with Saudi Game Champions in Saudi Arabia. And I just finished my contract, so I'm figuring out what I want to do. I have a couple of plans, which I don't know if I'll be sharing or not, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's very, very fair. Cool. That's really, really awesome. Okay, so some of the things we're going to talk about today are, well, honestly, actually, I'd love to know about your experience in the UK, especially as someone coming from Saudi. So, like, what were the kind of things that you did to like lock in and actually go for the awards that you got? What were the kind of events you visited? What were the places basically that you went to make sure that you kind of like put yourself out there, So, like, if I want to go to events or whatever, like where should I start? What should I look for? How do I approach events? Let's start there, basically.
Okay, so let's say you're doing your undergrad or you're doing your master's in the UK. I feel like when you're doing your undergrad, you have a few more years for you to be able to integrate. If you're doing your master's, it feels a lot more. I need to do as much as possible as I can. The main problem, honestly, is if you are based in London or if you're based around big cities or not. Thankfully, I was very close to London, so the school was in a city called Beaconsfield. It's kind of like half an hour away. I lived around that. It's like the city I was living in was 6 minutes away from Beaconsfield, so it was very. Uh, I'd say I was able to visit London a lot more frequently. Some people might not have that luxury because I'm mentioning this specifically because London has a lot of events. So if you're anywhere in the world, there's definitely cities that have a lot more events happening in them when it comes to game design, game development, and all of that. Let's say if you're in America, for example, there's going to be a lot more stuff in California compared to, I don't know, being in Colorado, for example. Same with like in Saudi, there's a lot more things happening in Riyadh than, I don't know, if you're in Tabuk. Um, I'd say this applies for a lot more, for every country you can think of. And the case with the UK is that definitely happens in London. So there's a lot more events happening in London and around London. But there's other cities that are trying to get more live when it comes to the game development industry and like the game development community. But yeah, let's jump into like how to actually get into events, how to get into awards. Um, One of the best places to start is if you are doing a course, your head of department or your instructors will know which events that are happening, how far they are. They will most likely ask you to or provide you free tickets or maybe a trip to one or two of these events. There's also events that are kind of like bigger that happen annually. For example, with the UK, there's Develop Brighton. There's EGX, which recently has been like mashed with MCM, which is their version of Comic Con. So there's a few more things that students are more likely to go to. I say honestly, go online, look it up, figure out what's happening in the cities around you, and it's very important to figure out which ones you want to actually go through the trouble of traveling to if you're not living in a big city. For example, BAFTA in London, they do a monthly social. It's really good, but for example, if you're not living in London, it's going to be difficult for you to commute there every month. Also, you need someone to get you a ticket to be able to make it. So if you know someone who can invite you once or twice, that's great, but you don't necessarily have to go every month. But for example, if it's Develop, you should definitely go. Develop is great for building your skills. It's great for networking. And when you go to big events, also check out what other events, smaller events that are happening around it. For Develop, they actually release a whole Excel sheet of events that are happening around Develop in Brighton, what time, who's organizing it, if you get tickets. A lot of them are free. Yeah. I think specify a bit more questions, Ashan. I will
Yeah.
just keep rambling.
But that's basically why I just made the question kind of like open-ended. This actually reminds me because like when I went to Gamescom and DevCom last year, one of the fun events that I visited was the narrative design hangout. So basically, just like a bunch of narrative designers came together for a drink somewhere, and I was just like running around to try to join them because why not, you know? Also, like there are a few other events that do this as well, like Pocket Gamer in Jordan. They had like a mixer after the event and stuff, so we were able to go there. I know that, you know, like some of the other events in our region, I guess we've got the Pocket Gamer stuff in Jordan and Dubai. We have the Moroccan Game Show, I think that's what it's called. I mean, in Lebanon, we usually have like game showcases every now and then. In Saudi, there's like a ton of different things. Is there anything happening in Jeddah generally, or is it just in Riyadh mostly?
So Jeddah, I think there was a bit more things happening before.
Mm.
So just like for people to generally know, so there was a lot of there was a big community of game developers in Jeddah. There was a big community of game developers in Sharqiya. But a lot of the community moved to Riyadh because a lot of like the investors, a lot of the important things are there.
Hmm.
So there's a lot more events happening in Riyadh compared to other places. But as you know,
Mm.
there's some places that are still trying to do things. For example, um, the University of Petrol and Mineral in the Eastern Province tried to do like a really cool big event last year. I think they're going to try to make it an annual thing. I think in Jeddah there's a bit smaller. events that are happening, like very small get-togethers, but I think they're trying to work on it a bit more. Sorry, give me a sec. I'll be right back.
Sure, sure. So yeah, some of the other places that I've been to, for example, um, so you also don't need to be somewhere to attend some of these events. Like for example, Arabic Games is an online conference for Arab game developers. I think it's in the name. So we're actually working on this at the moment, and hopefully it's going to be somewhere in November, if I'm not mistaken. And if we actually work on it, but no, I'm just kidding. We're working on it. It's most likely going to be in November. If any of you are interested, just keep an eye out for Arabic Games, for example. So you will see a lot of these things online. You'll be able to join these sessions. You'll be able to basically just attend an online conference. And both us as the Gaming Academy and Arabic Games, we gave away tickets to attend the DevCom and Gamescom. We gave away a total of 14 tickets, if I'm not mistaken. So, a lot of people had a chance to come in and join and either attend online or in person. And when you do attend either online or in person, both of these are like really, really good opportunities because at the very least, you'll be able to know the speakers, you'll be able to watch some professional talks, and you'll be able to network with a bunch of people. And speaking of networking, Rafif, like, how do you approach people? When you're at an event, do you like run up to them and go like, "Oh my gosh, games," or do you kind of like just ask them about something they know, or like, you know, if like I see someone that's really cool that just gave a talk, or someone that I know has worked on a certain game because of a pin they're wearing or like a jacket or whatever, how would I approach them? What are the ways to actually go and talk to people at events?
So yeah, this is a thing I struggled with. I'd say the first few events I've been to, mainly because unfortunately a lot of the networking, uh, like the networking vibe generally in the Western world revolves around drinking and alcohol, and it's not a very easy thing to cut through if you are not a person who drinks for one reason or another. So that was a bit harder for me to try and like break the ice of approaching people, just being like a person on the outside standing there like, oh, I'm just here drinking my water. So I just started approaching people like they're already drinking, they're already a bit easier to speak to. And I just assume that regardless of if they are drinking or not, I'm just assuming also if they're at a networking event, people want to network. So they're a bit more open to chatting with strangers. Um, so I would just approach someone, preferably do this if you have another friend. It makes life a lot easier. So if you're not talking to anyone, you don't feel awkward standing on the side. So stand with a friend of yours that you feel comfortable with. If you see someone on their own or like two people or like a group that you're not too afraid to approach, I'd say just walk up to them. Hey, how are you? My name is XYZ. I do XYZ. What about you? What do you do? And then find a jumping point from there. I'd say this is good for any networking event, but if you're trying to talk to someone um, around the conference that you've recognized, let's say you want to talk to a lead game designer of a certain game that you want, maybe you want feedback on your own design and you want to kind of connect with this person. Um, if it's after a talk, be like, hey, I loved your talk. I'm trying to do this, this, and that with my game. I think your input will be very valid. I'd love to chat with you more. It doesn't have to be a very long conversation. Just kind of speak to them with how much. Wait, I'm trying to find the right words to use for this. Give them the right amount of information they need to remember you, especially if time is tight. So yeah, just say, hey, I loved your talk. My game is XYZ. I am trying to do this, this, and that. I'd love your feedback. Do you mind connecting on LinkedIn? I'd love to chat to you about it. And more often than not, people are actually really friendly in the games industry. They will be more than happy to connect. Um, Long term, they'll actually just be your friends. There's a lot of people that I was really afraid to walk up to and talk to before. Everything from like heads of departments, game directors, CEOs. But once you kind of break that ice, even if you don't talk to them that regularly, it's a lot more easy to talk to them again and again every once in a while when you see them. So yeah.
So, who do you think were some of the biggest people that you've met and talked to casually? This is like I'm
Okay.
just very interested in knowing Saraha.
Okay. So one person that I talked to casually that is not like we didn't connect on socials or anything afterwards, but I've talked to John Romero. I like this is still it's my celebrity moment in the games industry because I remember playing Doom when I was a kid. Like you can see there's like Doom memorabilia all over. But I remember playing Doom when I was like 4 or 5. I was a kid and I'm just like playing this thing which you're not supposed to play when you're 5 or 6. But it didn't make sense to me back then. It looked just like gum and like raspberries and stuff. So yeah, meeting John Romero was my very much like my celebrity moment. Oh my god, I met John Romero. But no, I've also chatted with like a few really cool people. Um, so the head of BAFTA is a lovely guy. The game director from Us Two Games, lovely. I love her so much. I chatted with her. I was in develop last week, so I chatted with her again, and uh, even though we don't chat often, but she's very helpful. I told her, hey, like I love Us Two. Us Two is like my dream studio. I'd love to work on games like this. I love to make games like this. So every once in a while, whenever they have anything that she would recommend, she just send me a message. Like even the game jam that we worked on together was a suggestion from her. She just sent me a link and she's like, do this game jam. I'm like, okay. And it went well. So yeah, honestly, just I think don't think of them. I think just because we know these games, we feel like, oh my god, these people are celebrities. But people in the games industry, I don't think they think of them as of themselves as celebrities as much as we do. Unlike if it's movies or TV shows and or like musicians, they're definitely a lot more easy to speak to.
Yeah, that does make sense. I remember when I first talked to Joseph Fares as well, I was like freaking out and stuff. And I was like, hello, I'm Ashraf, I'm from Lebanon. And he was just like in like perfect Lebanese. He's like, why are you speaking English? Go for Arabic. What's wrong with you? And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm so sorry. But yeah, I was very flustered the first time I met him as well. So I completely understand where you're coming from, honestly. I
Yeah,
100% agree.
yeah.
But actually, I want to jump back a bit to what you mentioned about the game jam. So, you've mentioned that you've won awards. I've seen like a ton of articles written about you as well everywhere. I've seen, like you basically any game you've touched has somehow won an award. So, like, how do you do it?
Honestly, yeah, and I can't take credit for everything, honestly. For example, with Starvania, the game won an award at Gamescom for the art, and the art director, Masha'il, she's amazing. She deserves all the credit. She did a wonderful job with the art. But no, I think there is a certain formula, but you just need to tweak it a bit more. It's like when you're playing a game, oh, this game's gonna win an award, or you're watching a movie and you're like, oh, this movie's gonna at least be nominated. It feels like there's a certain formula. Um, I think one of the most like definitely design, the art, honestly, you can win awards for art, but I don't think art is the thing that usually makes or breaks a game. Um, my favorite example to use for this is Vampire Survivors. I dislike the art style of it very much. It's not my cup of tea. I don't think it's a lot of people's cup of tea, but it still won 2 BAFTAs. Like you can't deny that the design of the game was great, that it was very addictive. You can make a good game that doesn't have good graphics. Uh, you can even make a good game that doesn't have a good narrative. But the thing is, there's a lot of repetitive game design systems now that narrative is definitely the thing that will make it stand out. Um, I think it's very difficult to make a very interesting new mechanic for game design. Um, but one of the recent things just off the top of my head is viewfinder. So in viewfinder you have a polaroid camera, you take a picture, and then the picture you make or produce, you can use that around the world to navigate. And this is a very new mechanic. I Even if it was used to a certain extent, the entire game wasn't created around that mechanic. So yeah, I think there's like a certain formula. You should have interesting narrative. You should have really good game design. To be fair, you can also make a really good narrative game that doesn't have that. big of like a game design thing. It's all about how it feels like when you're playing it. If it feels right, if it feels broken. It's a lot of, unfortunately, it's a lot of aesthetics and vibes. And when you play a good game that has a lot of aesthetics and vibes, you get it. You're like, yeah, this feels good to play, regardless of the story, regardless of the design, regardless of the art. The feeling at the end of the day is like the thing that connects the player a lot more with the character, or like with the game, not even necessarily a character. You can play a box, but it will still be fun. Um, yeah, it's a few different things. It depends on what type of game you're trying to make. I don't think
Yep, that
this
does make a
helps.
lot of sense. I mean, kind of like I can bounce off of this. So basically, you're saying that game feel is like a super big thing, and there's literally a book called Game Feel by a guy called Steve Swink. So yeah, it's nice that a guy called Steve is writing books about games and specifically about game feel. I was thinking of the Minecraft Steves. Anyway, it doesn't matter. A point is, game feel is super important to actually get a game's core out. No, he's not Steve Lovasso, unfortunately. Even though I was obsessed with this guy for like a total of 3 seconds. But yes, basically, from what I've seen as well, like when we applied for the with Zaytoun to make a game jam for justice, we were very much talking about a justice-like theme. So it made sense for us to get this award. Airflip. When you were making, for example, when you were making uh, wait, I always mess up the name. It's not Eros Xavier. It's Xavier. It's Xavier. I flipped the name. The
It's Eros Xavier.
Yes, thank you. So when you were making this game, you also had like a general idea about what kind of checkboxes, quote unquote, you can use to actually win the game. Like you would never apply this game for a triple A contest or whatever. You know, you submitted it for a student BAFTA as a student, and you basically, in a way, ticked off the boxes that you were able to see from whatever these events had, kind of.
Yeah. So for Eros Xavier, actually, when I started making the game, I wasn't thinking about the BAFTA award itself. I was more thinking of how can I get good reception on it at EGX, because that was the end goal for our course. You work on a game and then you present it at EGX and then see how good it's gonna do. So basically, at the very beginning of the year, you're supposed to pitch 3 ideas. I had 3 ideas. One was very developed. One wasn't very developed, and one was I think this one was like middle ground. It was kind of developed, but not really. The one that was really developed, I'd say would have needed to be played in like a much calmer environment. And I was married to that idea, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, no, I'm not gonna develop this. I want something that's gonna be fun to play at a games event. And that's why I mainly went with Eros Xavier. Also, one of my professors said, if you don't make this, it's going to be a crime. So I listened to him, and he was right, I guess. Um, yeah, so that was mainly it. Like again, it depends on what type of game you're trying to make and why you're trying to make it. For Zaytoun, it made sense for it to be very narrative driven. It made sense for it to be slow paced because people are going to be testing it at home before they test it in like a real world environment. So that made sense, but for Eros, it made sense a lot more to make it something that's fun, something that even more people can look at the screen and kind of collaborate on a few things, like, oh yeah, move this thing around, move that thing around. Um, yeah. Sorry, I think I like cut
Yeah.
you off at some point.
No, absolutely. Like that's really good, actually. So basically, what you're saying is, if well, it's either you make a game for a certain vibe, or you find the vibe that matches your game and you just lean into it as much as you can to get the best out of it. So you won't make a game that's like super chill and super calm when you're going to showcase it at like a loud and feisty festival. Whereas you wouldn't make like a super crazy party game when you know that most people that are going to play it are going to be like single players that are just going to be playing it alone instead of like a couch co-op or something of the sort.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Guys, also, as usual, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. Um, Okay, but other than this, uh, actually, again, since we are talking about awards and the BAFTA and stuff, um, you mentioned that you were basically the first person to win a BAFTA who was non-European. And basically, as well, one as an
A
Arab.
student BAFTA, just so no one can come at me. Just a student.
Okay. So, Mahmoud, please type them out. So basically, as an Arab, as a woman in games, as someone that is very much interested in making, uh, you know, I feel like you and I, we align on one thing a lot, which is we really want to see our part of the world make some really cool things, and we're totally fine with being the ones to do it. Again, hair flip. But basically, what is it? Okay, مش to rephrase, but from what I've seen in Saudi, like a lot of people that are leading, like boots on the ground, are like you. There's Mashal, there's Dr. Hanan. It's basically a lot of women in games that are just doing their best and leading some really, really cool things around. So what is it like being someone that is leading stuff in game development in your own country and basically repping yourself and your culture, your world to everyone else? Because let's be honest, you're growing and you're getting to the global stage uh, in a really, really cool way.
Yeah, this is really funny because I think one of the things I was telling you about before is that, oh, I don't want to be like a pioneer because I feel like people use the word pioneer very loosely, and sometimes the pioneer isn't actually someone who's doing good. It's just that it's someone who's there and they just like pile all of this onto that person and be like, oh yeah, you're the pioneer. But no, alhamdulillah, like I'm really glad no I ended up actually doing, like, I'm not just pioneering in a way where, oh, I'm the first, like, just like, oh, I'm a woman in games or anything, and like alhamdulillah, like I've done a few other things that helped me, like, again, like I earned bragging rights to be like, hey, I'm a pioneer in this, like let's chat about this, I can help you around. um but yeah, it's honestly really really refreshing to see that a lot of the driving force. Wait, are you losing me or am I losing you? أشرف معلقة عندكم.
We can still hear you, Rafif, but I think
Okay, so it's just Ashraf.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, my internet's been very spotty recently.
It's
Please
okay.
ignore me. Go on.
I didn't know if it's you or me.
No, it's
But yeah,
sorry.
okay. So we were talking about, yeah, it's really refreshing to see that we have a lot of women who are the driving force of the industry in Saudi, especially because, as you know, as a person from the Middle East or MENA region or Swana, however you want to call it, everyone is like, oh, Arabs, they don't like women. Like women are suppressed. But we have a lot of women who are driving the industry, who are putting the industry forward. You can see a lot of studios is like, I don't know if I have a lot of references to use outside of Saudi at the moment, but we have a lot of studios in Saudi that have um, CEO women, or have a lot of, like, the team is majority women, or just people in leading positions that are women that are definitely driving the industry in Saudi forward. Um, as you mentioned, we have Dr. Hanan, we have Mashail, um, Dima. Honestly, Dima is also part of GCon, so GCon, again, GCon is specifically for women, by women. Even with the Mirak Accelerator, there's a lot of people from the Mirak team uh, who are women, who are like Rima. She's co-president, I believe. So we have a lot of really cool people who are trying to definitely drive the industry forward. They're trying to make sure that women don't feel left behind, making sure that women have the right space in this industry, which is sometimes a problem, as you know, like this is one of the problems that women face a lot in, especially like a lot of the stories I hear are from the US, where there's a lot of like harassment issues. I haven't heard as many in the UK, because again, UK has a lot more rules and regulations. This is kind of a similar thing in Saudi. Like if a woman knows that one of the other women is being harassed, they'll know, they'll try to like keep any predatory behavior away from the rest of the women. So it's very much a girl's girl world, which is really good to have, honestly. We went into a different direction, so I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, totally fine. Honestly, it's great as well to kind of show people that, you know, even though games seems like a male-dominated space, it really isn't. And honestly, it's like, yeah, thank you for sharing that as well. But yeah, you're right. Let's veer back a bit into games. So some of the things we talk about are like narrative games, and we talk about wholesome games quite a bunch. And I think both of us really, really like these a lot. So you also mentioned that you worked as a narrative designer on Bahamut for a while. What are basically your steps to actually, work in narrative design? So I think these are basically my last two questions. The first one is about your work process in terms of narrative design, and your second one is, we'll get to that in a bit, actually. But yeah, and then we will take questions from the audience and everyone around. So yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, trying to get a job in narrative. See, I don't want to be the person who's going to be like, oh yeah, there's so many jobs around. There aren't. You just need to work a lot on yourself to be very. Honestly, sometimes you just need to hold on. It's the industry currently is not at its best. Thankfully, I'd say maybe in MENA it's a bit better than abroad. But yeah, generally getting any design role is very hard because, including narrative, mainly because you would get a game director or the creative director, and they'd have a certain vision for the game, and they would think that, oh, if I hire a designer or if I hire a narrative designer, they're going to kind of lead that game into a different direction. So people are very how would you say this? They're very like uh, they hold their projects very close to their heart, so it's a bit harder to get game design roles. Also, you just sometimes don't need as many game designers in a studio as much as you need programmers, for example. But yeah, I'd say if you want to get a job in like a game design, a narrative design position specifically, have a lot of writing samples. I think also you might just need to know that you will probably need to do writing and narrative design. So there's definitely a difference. A writer can be onboarded onto a game project from whatever other project they're coming from, let's say TV, movie, whatever they do. Even like a novel writer can do writing on a game. They just need to kind of figure out how to do it in a certain way for games, because you can't put as many words into it. But narrative design, you literally have to design how the player interact with the story and how they interact with the game design, the world, the programming, and all of that for the story to make sense and how you're experiencing it in the world itself. So there's a few things you can do. You can have good writing samples. You can basically have a few papers on your portfolio that talk about how you've designed this world that you've made. What elements are there? So this is definitely a lot more specific to narrative design, but you can also kind of add, let's say, oh, you've created the first level and you want to add actual narrative and like writing, so you can add that as well. Another thing where if you don't want to do all the basics of the narrative design or the game design, if it feels overwhelming, you can kind of take a game that already exists that you're very, very familiar with the rules of, and just reimagine it and create something new, or just create an extra chapter. Let's say you've played a lot of God of War, you know all the rules of God of War, and let's say, I think, they're doing Egyptian mythology next, right? Or is it Greece
Think
first?
so. Chat, help us out. I'm not sure
So
actually.
it's okay. Let's assume they're doing Egyptian mythology. Let's say you're very familiar with the ancient Egypt. but they made stories about Ra and Bastet, etc. So there's this other god, I can make a chapter about this specific god, and you can just write that and create a narrative for that chapter that you've made. So people will also find it easier to follow with because it's something that already exists. They've probably played it. So following with the narrative is going to be a bit easier. Yeah, I think this is honestly my favorite tip, is to kind of to create a new chapter of a game that you're familiar with.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So basically use a base that exists and show people that you can faithfully reproduce or expand upon whatever exists at the moment.
Yeah.
Is this a good
Another thing
summary?
that I forgot to mention as well is to use visual scripting tools like Twine, or use any other tools for narrative. You can use Twine, you can use Ink, RenPy. What else is there?
PowerPoint. I love PowerPoint. It works.
Yeah, you can use PowerPoint, but the good thing about using Twine is you can even just export it and put it onto your itch.io. You can connect it. People can just play through it. It's really, really good if you're trying to make branching narrative. It's going to make your life a lot easier because you can visualize it, and when people are experiencing it, it's going to be fun to play. Basically, it's going to feel like what's the word? A text-based adventure. So it's a really good way to showcase your narrative design abilities and your writing skills.
Yep, absolutely. And actually, this is, I think, the second time we talk about Twine this year, so we might end up giving a session on it, which would be very, very fun. Yeah. So actually, we have one question in the chat that's very relevant to this conversation. And Mars asks, in terms of writing a narrative, how do you communicate with the sound or game designer to get the idea and the script across correctly, quote unquote correctly, and in harmony with all other elements? So is it just trial and error and redoing, or do you do something else?
This is a very interesting question. I've worked with a sound designer and a composer, but I was the game and narrative designer, like in this instance that I'm going to use as an example. But I'd say sometimes what I do is I do a lot of referencing. So I've even done narrative where I'm just the narrative designer and I have a writer. So just to get the point across, use a lot of references. So I would go as far as to like get this character's I don't know, what's it called, like horoscope chart. I'd get a few like more, what's the other thing called? Like their Briggs and Myers typing.
Yeah, the MBTI. Yep.
Yeah, their MBTI. I would also get if I can provide not just visual references but also audio references, that's going to be perfect. I had an issue before with it's not really an issue, but I was trying to explain to the composer what type of music I wanted for the main theme, because basically I had a radio in Aerosmith Xavier's Love Solutions, and I told the composer, hey, just make 5-6 different songs, whatever you want, just different genres. We're gonna have that playing, and we're just gonna cycle through it. But for the main theme, I want it to be very specific. I want it to feel like what's it called? Like a noir vibe, but also it has a bit of synth to the background. So he came back to me, and the music in the very beginning was very, very noir. It was, I think it was like a bit more sad than I wanted it to be. The solution was I made him a playlist. I'm like, here's some songs that I think would be a great reference. I think what you've done so far is good. It just needs some rework. And he came back with a really, really good soundtrack. Even when I'm talking about this, I'm playing it in my head, and I'm like, it was a bop. So I hope that answered it. What about with the game designer? I think with the game designer, it's a lot more hit and miss. Let me see. How do you communicate with the sound design? script across correctly. Yeah, so also unfortunately, if you're trying to get your narrative or writing in a game, there's probably going to be a lot of cutbacks. I think you just need to figure out which parts of the story you really want to push forward and keep. Because yeah, unfortunately, things are going to be cut, whether you like it or not. But how you can present it in the best way, I'd say, when you're doing your documentation, split it into, let's say you have things that don't need to be read, it just needs to be on the UI, or some things that can be like part of a collectible. I think just split it down, see how much needs to actually be said, or how much needs to be in a cutscene, how much needs to be, again, in a collectible that maybe describes a bit more about the world. A lot of people do world building in those collectibles, or for example with Hades, the more you enter a certain area, the more information will be revealed, or the more you beat a certain character, the more information will be revealed. I hope this answers it. If you have a very specific example, I can kind of like look into that, but I think this is what comes off the top of my head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good, actually. That's awesome. Thank you. Awesome. So now we are kind of running out of time. So very briefly, I just want to talk very quickly about wholesome games. Generally, there are a ton of different genres. We've got the FPS games, we've got the adventure games, we've got horror games, etc., etc. But one of the biggest things at the moment that's been slowly growing has been wholesome games as a whole. So thoughts on them? Why do you think they're growing so much? Do you encourage people to actually try to make some, or look into them, or is it just like whatever?
I think we definitely need wholesome games in our life. I think everyone is fed up with making another game about killing people, especially making another game about killing Middle Eastern people, because that's getting really, really boring. And a lot of games, it's just very repetitive. Like, yes, you have different guns. Yes, you might have different abilities, but at the end of the day, it's just, oh, kill this guy, kill that guy, maybe revive your buddy, and then kill more people. So I think people are really bored with this kind of cycle, which is very fair, very valid. People also are seeing too many gruesome things on TV. They need a break, or on social media. I don't think people open up their TV anymore. It's on social media. You're doom scrolling. You don't want to see this anymore. You want something that's more of a break. It's like when you're spending time with your cat. You're like, yay, I'm spending time with a cat. It's cute. It's fluffy. You want to have that same feeling, but in a video game, instead of that you can like take with you. You can't take your cat everywhere, even if you can. So I think this is why we definitely need wholesome games. We need a break from all the violence. We need to also be able to be gentle with ourselves and with other people. And whether we like it or not, yeah, I know there's a lot of studies that no games don't necessarily create violent people, but at the end of the day, you do need a break. If you see all of that, even if it doesn't make you a violent person, it might make you depressed. Even it might cause one thing or another, not necessarily in every case, just sometimes. So yeah, again, I'm saying this off the back of me having Doom as one of my favorite games, but at least we're killing monsters. But I have a ton of other games. Yeah. But yeah, I love really, really wholesome games. Doom is like one of the very few games I allow myself to be super violent with, because yeah, it's Doom. It's okay. But yeah, I think I'm really glad there's a lot more wholesome games. And a lot of the wholesome games are also shorter and nicer, and you can just play more games instead of like playing one really, really long game where you're just killing people over and over again. Like, play a game that's a puzzle, and then play a game where you're a cat trying to, I don't know, explore a forest. And this is not a real example. If it does apply to a real example, let me know. But yeah. I don't want to talk more.
honestly, that makes
I feel like I want to answer people's questions. I'm so sorry.
yeah, all good. I think we got the general gist of wholesome games and basically their use in today's world. So we'll start with the questions. So Mahmoud basically asked, how can he design a game that's easy to make? Because every time he comes to design a game, he ends up making something super ambitious, and he can't finish it without spending months or more having to do animation, modeling, get a proof of concept out, etc., etc., because all of this basically overwhelms him and ends up making him feel bad, because basically it's just too big of a project. So what can he do in this case?
Okay, so um, I'd say obviously start small, but basically try not to force yourself to do every element of the game. It's okay to use assets. It's okay to use pre-existing sounds, pre-existing music, as long as it's, of course, free to use. Um, don't pressure yourself into having to create everything and having it be original, 100% you. Just you making a game is already like a good accomplishment. Um, what else? I think try to make a game in the beginning that just has one or two mechanics at most, and try not to add to it. If anything feels overwhelming, cut back. Just like as long as you have like a game, but keep cutting back. It's okay to cut back again. A lot of people overshoot. A lot of people definitely overscope for their game. So it's okay to cut back. It's okay. So even with my master's project, I was aiming for 3 levels. I'm also a person who hates crunching, so I'm like, I'm not gonna crunch. I'm just gonna cut a level, and that worked. Yeah, just it's okay to cut back. I think maybe you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and you don't need to do that. It's a game. You can relax. It's okay.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And just to add to everything Rafif said, make something tiny, like not small, tiny. If you
A
think it's
micro
small,
game.
go smaller. Yeah, micro
Yeah.
game, 100%. And then you can build up from there. Awesome. So Abdurrahman also asked a question. He said he's always wanted to be an indie game developer and make a living by selling his own games. And since he's studying in Egypt, he always asks himself whether he should move to Europe or the US after finishing his degree to try to get a better chance. Is moving to a developed country really that important for an indie game developer, or can he still succeed while living in a less developed country like Egypt? And considering game development is mostly online, does where he lives actually matter or not much? And are there ways to deal with the challenges of being based in a country with fewer resources or opportunities? That's a lot of questions, but
It's
yeah, I think
okay.
we get the gist of it.
Yeah. So I go to Egypt a lot, so I'll try to answer a few of like the problems when it comes to resources and opportunities. Um, we have a few problems in our region in general, which is like unstable electricity, unstable internet. I think this type of challenges are the biggest challenges you'd face. But honestly, you can reach everywhere just because you're connected online. You can make a successful game even if I don't know you're. I'm trying to find an island that's really tiny that no one knows about, but I don't know, like it's fine. You can make a good successful game. You don't need to be in the Western world. I'd say the good thing about being in the Western world is making connections and marketing. Just because um, let's say in from as far as I know or as far as I've seen, people in the UK, people in let's say the US, there might be a lot more people who are willing to buy indie games. Um, but in our region, it's a lot more. Oh, this is a small game. Let's say it's 4 hours. I'm not going to pay money for it. It's just 4 hours. Or other people are going to be like, oh, it's an indie game. It's not going to be like a PlayStation game. I'm not going to pay for this. So there's still some holdback when it comes to people in our region buying games, specifically indie games. I'd say this is like the other struggle or challenge that might be specifically in our region. So I'd say make a game that targets certain things abroad. Like try to make. I'm not saying abandon all of your hopes and dreams to make a game about targeted for our region, But think about making a game that's targeted towards the West, China maybe, because China, honestly, they buy a lot of games, they play a lot of games. It's just knowing your target audience. You can make a successful game anywhere. Yeah. Resources and opportunities. Again, like I think the games industry is severely underpaid, except if you're a CEO of a AAA company. But that's honestly another thing, is how expensive the country you're living in is, and how hard is it to survive as a developer, or like solely a developer. You can probably like get 2 jobs, but capitalism. I'm not gonna delve into that, but yeah. But yeah, you can make a game anywhere. It can be successful. It's okay, regardless of where you are.
100%. And actually, I don't know if you guys remember the game Pou, Pou. This was made by a single Lebanese guy, and the game has like I don't know how many millions of downloads on the App Store and the Play Store. So our region does have people that can make really good games. We just need to. I don't want to say we need to put in the effort, because we do put in the effort, but we need to make games that people want to play if we want to survive off of them. Because at the end of the day, we are selling products, so we need to be making products that people want to buy. So it's very important that you're able to express yourself through your games, but at the same time, you need to make sure that it's up to par with other things of quality, or can share things that other games cannot share. Again, it's a product at the end of the day. So we have another question from Mahmoud as well, which is about mentorship and pushing himself forward and not beating himself up. So he says he generally needs a guideline or like a mentoring thing of sorts, just so that he can actually evaluate himself, see where he stands, and check his work. Because every time he does something, he ends up belittling his work. And because he has like a certain standard he wants to reach, he ends up overthinking the standard he's at the moment, and he loses focus. And basically, this just results in him being disappointed in his work. So, what are some things he can do to avoid that, or where can he get mentorship, or basically that?
So this is actually one of the things that Ashraf and I are supposed to be working on. We have an initiative together. I love how we didn't mention this. We have an initiative together called the Game Dev Initiative for the Global South. It's supposed to be chapter-based, similar to IGDA, but this focuses a lot more on not just networking, but the developers themselves. So you'd have a chapter for MENA region, where we'd provide courses, mentorship, etc., by people from the region, for people from the region, and in local languages. I know we're speaking in English, but like I'd love for us to be speaking in Arabic. That would be great. So yeah, we're gonna try and do another batch. We did a test run for the mentorship. Alhamdulillah, like we had a good number of signees for the first year, but we're definitely trying to get like more sponsors and trying to make it bigger and regulate it a bit more. But yeah, for our region, I don't know if there's any mentorship programs other than the one that we're trying to work on. However, again, people in the industry are really sweet. Just message anyone if you feel like this person aligns with what you're trying to do. Message them, hit them up, find them on LinkedIn, be like, hey, I see you're in game design, you're working on XYZ game. I'd love for you, like I'm looking for a mentor. If you have the time, I'd love to chat to you and see if we can do this. It doesn't even have to be people from our region. You can definitely reach out to people abroad. I'm trying to think of if there's anyone I've done that with before. But no, I've come up to people in person and said that. I'm like, hey, I'd love your feedback on, like, I'm gonna work on some pitches. I'd love your feedback. So people are really friendly. So yeah, don't be afraid to just message someone and ask for mentorship. Even Ashraf, am I pointing the right way? Yeah, message Ashraf. Message me if you want. Yeah, just or ask people around. Sometimes people know people who are interested in mentoring people. I said people too many times.
It's all good. Yeah, and actually, one of the things to add, I was talking to Osama Dorius about this. So Osama Dorius is also like a huge game designer in the game development world. And he said that one of the ways to actually get mentored is not to ask for mentorship because people are scared of the word mentorship and the commitment it gets. So what you can do as well is just like Rafif mentioned, ask for feedback. Be like, hey, I have this thing. Can you give me feedback on it? And then if they're open to giving you feedback and stuff, then you're good to go. And they might be doing it once and twice and 3 times and 4 times. And that's basically how you form like an informal mentorship of sorts. Having said this, literally DM either me or Rafif or someone that you know and trust, and we can either help you ourselves or we can put you in contact with the person that can help you with whatever you need. So the disappointment is definitely going to come when you don't know what you're looking for. So talk to people, basically. We're here. We're here to help out with all of this. So don't be shy. So Lean also has a question about platforming games. So Lean loves platforming games, well, likes platforming games, and wants to specialize in them, either like both 2D and 3D. So is there a strong demand for platformers, or is it more like other games at the moment?
I'm just very intrigued by the fact that the example you used is Hoa, because I don't think if someone's thinking about platformers, they think Hoa. I think people would think, oh, Mario. So that's interesting. I think platformers will always be desirable because it's one of the first forms of video games that was ever made. So I feel like people love going back to it. The challenge is making a platformer that feels unique. But also, honestly, platformers, the best way to describe it, I hope you speak Arabic, but السهل الممتنع. It's really difficult to make, even though it feels like it's very easy. Yeah, like placing platforms is not a fun thing. Like making sure all these platforms are placed properly. But anyways, I think there's always demand for platformers. If it's not now, it will like dip and come back. So making platformers is always a good choice.
Yep, awesome. If you want to make money off of them, the market is getting, they're like platformers are available. So just be careful with that. Just like Rafif said, the most important thing is you make the game unique because that's what's going to sell. Awesome. So Muhammad has a question, which is how do you build a story for a wholesome game without it being too goofy or childish?
I think we are not embracing the childish and goofy part. I'm trying to think of okay, I'm going to give you an example. It's not for a game, but it's for a TV. It's not even a TV show. It's for a movie. So I'm very obsessed recently with K-pop Demon Hunters, as you should all be. You should watch it. It's really good. But one of the things they really leaned into is they're making a fun game. Sorry, not a game. They're making a fun movie. It's not necessarily for kids. It's not necessarily for adults. It's not necessarily for teens. They're just making a good animated show. And because it's a game, because it's an animated show, etc., it feels like, if I make it too soft or too non-violent, it might feel a bit more like it's childish. But that shouldn't be a bad thing. It shouldn't feel like something to avoid or something to be that wary of, to be honest, unless you really care about the rating of your game and like the ESRP rating and stuff. But yeah, I think the undertones of the game would matter the most if you don't really want it to be childish. Ashraf, help me out. I'm trying to think of like a wholesome game that doesn't feel too childish or goofy.
I mean, Stray was quite fun, no? Like, Stray is not a child's game. It's a game about cats, and you just like run around and stuff. I mean, another one would probably be Stardew Valley. I feel like Melissa would kill me for this, but that's fine. Spiritfarer is an interesting choice as well.
Spiritfarer. Okay. So Spiritfarer is a great example. It's one of my favorite games, but it's a really depressing game. Like if you want to cry, if you want to sit at your desk at the end of the day and just like stare at your screen, play it. The narrative is amazing. You should absolutely try it. It's non-violent. It's basically resource management, which is something I'd never play generally, but the narrative definitely made me play it. I'm not gonna try and say too many spoilers, but basically you play as this character, and you're helping spirits move. You're kind of like in a purgatory of sorts. You're helping them move on. And as you have them on your boat, you learn a lot more about them. So the gameplay is very wholesome. It's a lot of like collecting, growing your plants, cooking. There's characters that have favorite food that you cook for them. It's very wholesome. It's very cute. But at the same time, when you're reading the narrative, you're like, oh, this is dark. But again, dark doesn't necessarily mean bad or not wholesome. It just means sometimes there's stuff that we need to talk about, whether we like it or not. But yeah, try Spiritfarer. Florence actually as well. Florence is a very short game. It takes like an hour or something to finish. It's a game about relationships. Again, doesn't take much time to play. It's not too childish. The narrative definitely is about basically people experiencing a relationship. What else? I hope these are good examples. I'm trying to think of other stuff, but if I think of more, I'll type them.
Yep, some people said, someone asked about the Plucky Squire, someone said Journey, someone said, where was it? Unpacking. Unpacking is a great wholesome game example.
Unpacking, yes.
Yep. I don't know if I'd count Dave the Diver as a wholesome game, to be honest. You do fight a lot. It's less than what I'd expect it to be, but I don't know. Rafif, what do you think? Is Dave the Diver a wholesome game?
Dave the Diver. To be fair, I haven't played it yet, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it does feel like it's a wholesome game. I know there's cooking, there's fishing, there's certain, but like if that shouldn't be the baseline for me to decide this.
Yeah.
It feels like it should be, but I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it is like I wouldn't put it under the definition of wholesome, but it is more fun and lighthearted than other games. Kind of. Yeah.
Honestly, for me, I feel like wholesome games, it's really hard to define, but I would say it's at least something that doesn't have combat. I think combat automatically takes out the wholesome part, unless if it's maybe turn-based combat that doesn't feel as stressful. But real-time combat, absolutely not wholesome. Anything where you're killing people, I feel, again, not wholesome. There's a game called Ooblets. You're basically collecting plants, and the way you battle each other is through a dance battle. So that's very wholesome. It's still a battle. You're destroying your opponent, but it's still via dance moves. So yeah, I feel like if there's any sort of fighting, you can directly take it out of wholesome. Or no, like that. Amnesia and Outlast are definitely not a wholesome game.
Yeah, that sounds. Stop turning our definitions against us.
If there's something chasing you to kill you, that's not a wholesome game either. I feel like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Again, something is chasing you to kill you. So, for Five Nights at Freddy's.
So basically, guys, to just wrap up the wholesome part, someone said it pretty well. If you are grinning in the game and you're just enjoying yourself, if the game feels cozy enough for you to be playing it and chilling and relaxing instead of playing it and like locking in, this is closer to wholesome than anything else. So horror games are not wholesome. I'm sorry, guys.
If you can have a cup of tea and play and not completely forget about it, I feel like that feels like it's a wholesome game.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. So I think we have one more question. By the way, chat, I love how much you guys are talking. Please keep going at it. So Mars asks, how do you balance your hobbies, as in like game dev, with already overwhelming courses or work or whatever? So like if you want to do game dev, but you also want to do your hobbies, but you also want to do, work or whatever, how do you kind of like balance everything out?
So honestly, the easiest way is if you're doing everything from home. Working from home makes life a lot easier. I've worked multiple jobs while working from home, and it felt so much smoother. But if you're working at an office and you need to commute, that's a bit more difficult. I think as long as you know how much time you're supposed to be putting into everything. For example, I like a few months ago, I've done a course on puzzle design. The course was online, but I was still working in person. So I'd go to work, I'd come back by 4 or 5 p.m. max, and then I'd have like some small break where I can grab a bite, I can eat, I can maybe like call my family, check in on them, and then I'd have like an hour or an hour and a half of the course itself and working on it. So as long as you can get your schedule set up properly, and give yourself leeway. Like, don't expect to be able to, like, oh, I'm gonna get home at 5, I'm gonna start working at 5. It's not gonna work. Give yourself a break. Make sure you have time for eating. Make sure you have time for, I don't know, showering. Just like being a normal human. Listen, a lot of my suggestions are don't grind. So this is what I'm gonna keep telling you. Just don't grind. Take time. Like, if you can't do everything during the work week, you still have the weekend. Like, if you want to do hobbies during the weekend and then keep your work week for work and courses, do that, and have time for your hobbies on the weekend. Don't try to squeeze everything into one day. We all have the same 24 hours. It depends on how much you're trying to do in it, but don't pressure yourself. Don't force yourself to burn out. That's the most important thing, because if you burn out, all of this energy that you're putting into making your thing, or like creating this I don't know, plan or future for yourself, is just gonna be halted very suddenly, and it's gonna be really annoying. So just make sure you don't burn yourself out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Basically, breathe, you guys, please. Like, life is long and it's very much ahead of us. So take your time with existing, and don't punish yourself for not being able to do your hobbies or to do something as quickly as you want to do it. And again, you're not getting no one's gonna fight you if you don't finish whatever. Please don't breathe and drink water. That's the best way to choke. I forgot what I was saying. My point is, game dev, if it's not your job and you're not relying on it to make money, it's going to be a hobby. So forgive yourself for not spending 60 hours a day on making your games. It's okay if you spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes just learning something new. It's okay if you just watch a small 5-minute tutorial to like have something to think about. Um, yeah, so we have one final question from Mahmoud. I think that would be it for the day. So he asks, when do you say enough learning and start implementing, and vice versa?
I don't think you can ever learn enough, but you should implement as you go. Let's say you took a course in game design. You're gonna start trying to make a proper, like, not even a proper. You're gonna start to design your own game, your first game, let's say. But you're still not gonna know everything just because you took one course. Even if you take 20 courses, you might not know everything, because the creative industry, there's no mold for you to like fall into. It's not like when you're studying medicine, you need to make sure you learn everything about the human body. This is more like you need to learn, I don't know, every living creature and how their body works, but also the history, and also it's a lot of stuff. Um, so you can never learn enough. You should never stop learning. You should always try to continue developing, or else your games are going to be irrelevant soon. But you should always try to implement once you feel comfortable enough. But also, this is a trick, because if you say once you're comfortable enough, I know people are going to be like, oh, but I'm not comfortable, and then 5 years later you still haven't implemented anything. So find a deadline for yourself to kind of force yourself to implement something. For example, go into a game jam, do like a week-long game jam, force yourself to implement something, and just give yourself the grace to come back to it years later and be like, oh, I see what I did wrong in this. I need to fix X, Y, Z. And that's normal because that's how it's supposed to be. You're growing, you're learning. It's fine to look back and find the mistakes in the stuff you've done. Actually, if you don't look back or if you look back and you don't find any issues, that's the problem. Then you need to probably learn a bit more, develop yourself a bit more. But it should always be more of like it's a regular process. You're learning, you're implementing, you're learning, you're implementing. There isn't a specific time for you to stop learning and start implementing.
Absolutely. And one thing I recommend doing is instead of learning to implement, implement to learn. So what I do is whenever I join game jams, I decide on a genre I've never done before, and then I make a game in that genre. This way I can learn how to make something that I've never learned to make before. And a game jam is a very short period of time to learn something. Usually I join the 48-hour ones, which is a horrible idea generally. But because I'm only implementing one function, so like I remember the first time I made a first-person shooter game. It was not a first-person shooter game. It was a first-person shoe game. But that's a story for a different day. Basically, I just created a thing that shoots stuff. And this was what my whole game was about. You know, I had already learned how to implement movement. I had already learned how to implement jumping. And I know how things interact with each other, but I've never done a first-person shooter before. So I created the gun, quote-unquote gun, and I created the things that get hit by the gun, and that was what the game was about. When I made my first platformer, I also learned about how to get my character to interact with the world and to do something new for the character's interaction with the world around it and stuff like that. When I made my first racing game, I just basically made everything slippery. Horrible idea. But this was something I learned. So the point I'm trying to make is, as Rafif said, you can never learn enough. So instead of trying to learn everything, have a project in mind, work towards it, and learn as you go. Because that's what's going to teach you what you need, what you must know. And as you go through different projects, you'll realize, oh, this movement mechanic that I made before, I could have actually reused it over here if I had just tweaked my code a bit so that I can just grab it from this project and slap it into the other one. So over time, you will learn what it is you need the most and how you can implement it in whatever it is you're doing. But you have to implement while learning, or else you'll just be stuck in tutorial hell. And you don't want to be stuck there, because I was there once and it sucked. That's why I just threw everything away and started doing and learning as I do. So yeah, that's basically it. Rafif, thank you so much, honestly. This was really wonderful. I had a lot of fun. I hope everyone else also did. If we want to find you somewhere, is that we want to keep up with you and what you're doing and stuff. I know we can Google you, but like, how else can we connect with you and chat with you and stuff?
So I'm gonna put my name in the chat. You can add me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Also, Twitter is private, but I'll accept you. It's fine. But this is my user. Let me just IG Twitter. I think it's also the same user for Blue Sky. I promise I'm gonna try and like be more active on there. What other socials? You can find me in the GA Discord, or we're using that still, yeah? So if you have any questions left, you can send me a message there. Just mention me. I'm more than happy to reply. Feel free again to add me on LinkedIn, and if you have any questions that you maybe didn't feel comfortable asking, feel free to send me a message. Yeah. What other socials? That's the main thing, I think. So yeah.
Yep, I think that's it. Awesome. Great. Thank you everyone for attending. Rafif, again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Take care. See ya. You
Bye.
too.